Today we leave the present behind and walk together through memories that are no longer our own. Feel the weight of the purple mantle on your shoulders as we enter the marble palaces of Constantinople, where gold gleams under the light of 1,000 candles and the air carries the scent of distant incense. If you feel this journey has touched your night, consider joining us again, and tell us where you are listening from. Now silence the world around you, dim the lights, and breathe deeply. We are about to dream of the past. I am the Emperor. The purple I wear is not merely fabric, but the weight of empire itself. As the sun sets beyond the walls of Constantinople, my body already yearns for the rest that rarely comes in fullness. The imperial mantle I carry during the day seems to double its weight as the shadows lengthen. The servants move silently through the imperial chamber, preparing my nightly ritual. There is a precise order to their movements, established centuries before me. I watch as they light the oil lamps, one by one, placing them in worked silver holders that reflect light against the polished stone walls. The chamber is not as grand as the ceremonial halls, but every inch of it speaks of power and tradition. My bed is not as you might imagine. It is not of gigantic proportions, but it is elevated, so that I never sleep at the level of those who serve. The canopy is draped with silk of the deepest purple, the color forbidden to all but me and my closest family. This imperial purple, extracted at great cost from thousands of tiny murex sea snails, is a reminder even in sleep that I am not as other men. The ritual begins as two silently approaching servants remove my daily regalia. First, the heavy golden collar, then the jeweled belt, and finally the imperial diadem. With each piece removed, I feel both lighter and strangely more vulnerable. The only guards permitted in this chamber are the executors, elite soldiers who will stand vigil throughout the night, motionless as statues just beyond my doorway. They will not sleep until I wake. I glance toward the small shrine in the corner of my chamber, where a golden icon of Christ Pantocrator watches over my slumber. Unlike my predecessors in ancient times, I do not fear the night as a realm of demons, but as a Byzantine emperor, I acknowledge it as the time when the soul is most vulnerable to both divine inspiration and temptation. A servant approaches with a silver basin of rosewater. I dip my hands and face, washing away the dust of governance. This simple act marks my transition from public figure to private man, though in truth, an emperor is never truly private. Even in sleep, I remain the living embodiment of Roman authority, the chosen of God to rule his empire on earth. The prefect of the sacred bedchamber enters now, an eunuch of the highest rank, to oversee the final preparations. He alone will remain within calling distance through the night. As I settle onto the silk-covered mattress, I hear the distant chanting of monks in the palace chapel, their prayers a constant shield around my vulnerable sleeping form. My eyes grow heavy as the lamps are dimmed one by one. Tomorrow I must rise before dawn for morning prayers and the endless duties of the throne. But for now, I surrender to sleep, as every Byzantine emperor has done since Constantine the Great first dreamed of this city that bears his name. Silence falls upon my chamber like a blessing. It is a silence unlike any other in Constantinople, a sacred quiet that few will ever know. The imperial bedchamber, this porphyry room where emperors are born and where they rest, holds a stillness that feels almost holy. Within these walls of imperial purple stone, imported at immeasurable cost from the quarries of Egypt, I am both most powerful and most vulnerable. The last of my attendants bows and retreats backward, never turning his back to me even as I prepare for sleep. The massive doors close with a sound like distant thunder, then silence reigns supreme. Only now, in this rare solitude, do I hear the subtle symphony of the night, the soft crackle of oil lamps, the distant call of night birds from the gardens, the occasional footfall of guards patrolling the corridors beyond. The porphyry walls around me seem to glow with inner light. This precious purple stone, cold to the touch yet warm to the eye, absorbs the flickering flames, and transforms them. I often think these walls have witnessed more truth than any advisor or minister. How many emperors before me have stared at these same patterns in the stone, seeing visions of campaigns yet to be launched, or the faces of enemies yet to be vanquished? The thought both comforts and disquiets me. In this room, tradition dictates that imperial children are born in the purple, porphyrogenitos, a designation that marks them as born to rule, different even from their birth from common men. My own son was born in this very chamber, his first cries echoing against these ancient stones. I wonder sometimes if the walls remember each imperial birth, each imperial death. The dancing light catches on the gold mosaics inlaid high in the ceiling. Christ Pantocrator looks down upon me, his face serene yet judgmental, his hand raised in blessing. Even in my most private moments I am watched, by God, by history, by the weight of empire itself. There is comfort in this eternal vigilance, and yet there is burden too. I shift on my couch as a peculiar silence falls, that moment when even Constantinople herself seems to sleep. Few know that despite the luxury surrounding me, my sleeping couch is relatively simple. While the frame is gilded and the linens are silk, the mattress is firm, almost hard. This is partly tradition and partly my personal preference. Emperor Nicephorus II, a ascetic despite his power, was known to sleep on the floor beneath a rough blanket, even as emperor, a habit that earned him respect, but perhaps contributed to his murder in his sleep by his wife and her lover. The candlelight flickers as a draft passes through the chamber. Some emperors feared such sudden movements of air, seeing in them the passing of spirits or portents of doom. I am more pragmatic, though not entirely free of superstition. The candlelight creates shifting shadows. Sometimes I fancy I see the ghosts of emperors past moving along the walls, watching me with hollow eyes, judging whether I am worthy of the purple they once wore. Through the high windows, stars are visible. The same stars that guided Constantine to this place, that watched over Justinian as he rebuilt the Hagia Sophia, that witnessed the triumph of Heraclius and the agonies of Romanos IV after Manzikert. Under their eternal gaze, the span of a single imperial life seems so fleeting, so insignificant. A curious feature of my bedchamber that few outsiders know is the hidden passage behind the eastern wall. Disguised by a shifting panel of marble, it leads to a series of tunnels that could, if necessary, allow escape from the palace. Many of my predecessors have used these secret ways, some to visit lovers in the night, others to flee assassins. I pray I shall only ever need it for the former reason, though history suggests the latter is equally likely. The lamps burn lower now, their light softening. By tradition, they are never completely extinguished during an emperor's sleep. Darkness is for commoners. The emperor must always dwell in light, even in slumber. The oil used is special too, perfumed with rare spices from the East that are said to promote peaceful dreams and ward off nightmares. Whether this is true or merely another pleasant fiction of court life, I cannot say, but I find comfort in the ritual nonetheless. As sleep begins to claim me, my thoughts drift to the curious dichotomy of my existence. Here, in the most private space in the empire, I am still never truly alone. Beyond my doors, at least 4 guards stand vigil through the night. The prefect of the sacred bedchamber sleeps lightly in the antechamber, ready to attend me at a moment's notice. Servants wait in distant rooms, prepared for any imperial whim even in the deepest hours of night. And yet, despite this constant attendance, the loneliness of power is never more acute than in these quiet moments before sleep claims me. I wonder sometimes what dreams come to those who wear the purple. Are they different from the dreams of merchants or farmers or soldiers? Do all men, regardless of station, face the same fears and desires in the realm of sleep? Or does the imperial purple dye even our unconscious thoughts, setting us apart even in our dreams. My eyes grow heavier as the sacred silence deepens. The last thing I see before sleep claims me is the dancing light on porphyry walls. The same light that has lulled generations of emperors before me, and will continue long after I am gone. In this eternal cycle of imperial slumber, I am but a moment, a single breath in the long life of Byzantium. The scent of incense hangs in the air like a veil between worlds. Not the heavy church incense that fills Hagia Sophia during the divine liturgy, but something more subtle, more personal. My evening incense is a blend created only for the imperial bedchamber, frankincense from Arabia, myrrh and ambergris, with delicate notes of Damascus rose and Lebanese cedar. The recipe is a state secret, known only to the chief imperial perfumer, who prepares it with his own hands. A servant swings the golden censer in prescribed motions, 3 times before the icon of Christ, 3 times before the imperial bed, and once at each corner of the room. The gentle tinkling of its silver chains forms a quiet counterpoint to the barely audible prayers he whispers. This ritual purifies the space where an emperor will dream, creating a sanctuary against both physical miasma and spiritual harm. I inhale deeply, letting the fragrant smoke fill my lungs. My physicians claim the incense promotes healthful sleep and wards off night vapors that might bring illness. The theologians insist it carries our prayers heavenward and creates a barrier against demons who prowl in darkness. Perhaps both are right. In Byzantium, medicine and faith are never truly separate. The court chaplain enters now, dressed not in his ceremonial vestments, but in a simple black cassock. He carries a small book bound in silver, my personal prayer book, commissioned by my grandfather and illuminated by the finest artists of the scriptorium. The prayers inside are not merely the standard devotions, but ones specially composed for an emperor's protection during the vulnerable hours of sleep. "Shall we begin, Your Serenity?" he asks, his voice as soft as the incense smoke that curls around us. I nod, and together we recite the emperor's night prayer, words spoken by Byzantine rulers for centuries. Lord Christ, who never slumbers nor sleeps, keep watch over your servant as I close my eyes. Guard the empire you have entrusted to my care. Send your angels to stand at the 4 corners of this chamber. As I lay aside my crown, remember that I rule only by your divine will. Grant me wisdom in dreams, as in waking hours, that I might govern your people with justice and mercy. The familiar words bring comfort. They remind me that even an emperor is ultimately a servant of God, of the empire, of history itself. How many imperial lips have formed these same words? Constantine, Justinian, Heraclius, Basil, now mine. Someday, God willing, my sons. After the formal prayers conclude, the chaplain sprinkles holy water in a cross pattern upon my brow. The water comes from a special cistern beneath the palace chapel, blessed annually during the Feast of Theophany, when all waters are sanctified. A drop falls into my eye, and I blink it away, reminded of my own baptism, that first and most important anointing before I ever received the imperial one. The chaplain withdraws, and now the keeper of the imperial relics approaches. He carries a small golden box, which he opens with reverent care. Inside lies a splinter of the true cross, set in crystal and gold. I kiss it gently, then he places it on the small shrine beside my bed, where it will remain until morning. Some of my predecessors wore such relics around their necks as they slept, but I prefer this tradition. There is something profound about having the wood of our salvation standing guard near my pillow. In the early days of Christian Rome, Constantine reported that his conversion came through a dream. Is it any wonder, then, that we Byzantines pay such careful attention to the spiritual atmosphere in which an emperor sleeps? Dreams are not merely the mind's idle wanderings, but potentially divine messages, particularly for those whom God has chosen to rule. The master of the wardrobe approaches, next, carrying something few outsiders would associate with imperial sleep, a monk's simple woolen cowl. Every Byzantine emperor since the pious Theodosius II has worn this humble garment over his nightclothes, a reminder that earthly power is temporary, and that even emperors must appear before God's judgment seat as mere men. I slip it over my silk night garments, the rough wool a stark contrast against the smooth fabric beneath. This duality perfectly captures the Byzantine soul, magnificent yet humble, imperial yet devout. My personal deacon now brings the final element of the night, ritual, a small vial of oil from the lamp that burns perpetually before the icon of the Virgin in the palace chapel. With his thumb, he traces the sign of the cross on my forehead, my eyelids, and my lips, sealing them with divine protection. This oil, which has illuminated the Mother of God's gentle face, now guards the Emperor's senses through the dark hours. The room grows quieter as most attendants withdraw. The incense has burned lower now, its smoke thinning but still present, like a fading memory. I can smell the beeswax of the candles more clearly, their honey scent mingling with the lingering incense. Outside, the night wind carries distant sounds, the changing of the guard, the last calls of street vendors closing their stalls, the eternal voice of the sea that cradles Constantinople in its arms. My mind turns to the curious blend of paganism and Christianity that still infuses these rituals. The incense and the concern with propitious dreaming would not have been unfamiliar to my pre-Christian predecessors who ruled from Rome. Yet now these ancient concerns have been baptized, transformed into expressions of orthodox piety. We Byzantines excel at such transformations, preserving the useful aspects of ancient wisdom while redirecting them toward Christian ends. I settle against the pillows, the monk's cowl rough against my cheek. The weight of empire seems to lift slightly with each prayer completed, each sacred ritual observed. Tomorrow I must be the emperor, dispenser of justice, commander of armies, voice of God's authority on earth. But tonight, in the sacred silence, perfumed by holy incense, I am simply a soul preparing to meet its creator in the mystery of sleep. Beyond my chamber doors, they stand in perfect stillness. The excubitors, my night guards, selected from the finest soldiers in the empire, men who have proven their loyalty beyond question. They do not move. They barely breathe. Their vigilance is absolute. In the flickering torchlight of the corridor, their golden shields and eagle-topped spears catch the light, creating an almost supernatural aura around them. They are as much symbols as they are men. I wonder sometimes about these guardians of imperial sleep. Do they envy me my silken bed? Or do they pity the one who wears the purple, knowing as they must how many of my predecessors have died by treachery in the night? The excubitors were established centuries ago by Emperor Leo I, precisely because of such dangers. A sleeping emperor is vulnerable to more than just bad dreams. 4 men stand watch at all times, one facing each cardinal direction, as if guarding not just against human assassins, but against malevolent spirits from every corner of the cosmos. They rotate in perfect silence every 2 hours, a changing of positions so choreographed that it resembles a solemn dance more than a military procedure. The captain of the night guard is always a patrician, often related by blood or marriage, to the imperial family. Tonight, it is my wife's cousin Theodore who commands them. The discipline of these men is remarkable. They are trained to stand motionless for hours, yet remain instantly alert. Their eyes never close, not even for a moment. It is said that an excubitor who allows his eyelids to droop even once during his watch is immediately dismissed from service. I do not know if this is strictly true, but the story itself serves its purpose in maintaining their legendary vigilance. Beyond the excubitors, in rooms and corridors radiating outward from my chamber like the spokes of a wheel, other guards maintain their own silent watches. The Scolae Palatini patrol the wider palace complex, while the fearsome Varangians, those giant axe-bearers from the northern lands, guard the outer approaches. They are my living walls, these men, arranged in concentric circles of protection, with me at the center. I have never seen them at their night duties, of course. An emperor does not rise in the darkness to inspect his own guardians, but sometimes, in that nebulous space between wakefulness and sleep, I imagine I can hear them breathing, the synchronized rhythm of men trained to protect my life with their own. It is both comforting and strange to be the object of such vigilance. The captain of the excubitors is the only guard permitted to speak in the vicinity of the imperial bedchamber after nightfall. Even then, he may only whisper, and only to convey information of the utmost urgency. There is a codified language for such communications, a specialized vocabulary that allows vital intelligence to be conveyed without disturbing imperial rest, any more than absolutely necessary. Words for fire, assassination attempt, military uprising, and other emergencies have all been replaced with innocuous substitutes that would not immediately alarm anyone overhearing them. My predecessors have had complex relationships with their guards. Emperor Justinian reportedly insisted on staying awake until dawn, at least once a week, working through the night while his guards stood watch. Was this from dedication to imperial business, or a deeper fear of vulnerability? The great Theodosius, conversely, was known to call his guards by name and inquire after their families. I fall somewhere between, aware of them as men, grateful for their service, but conscious always of the necessary distance between emperor and subject. The night brings its own peculiar protocols. Should I require anything during the darkness, hours, I need only ring a small silver bell beside my bed. Its sound activates a carefully orchestrated response. The captain of the excubitors enters first, ensuring the chamber is secure. Only then may the prefect of the sacred bedchamber attend to my needs, whether I wish for water, physician, or scribe to record some midnight inspiration. One curious tradition that few outsiders know. At precisely the middle hour of the night, the captain of the excubitors opens my chamber door a handspan and recites a brief prayer for imperial protection. This custom dates back to the reign of Theodosius II, who claimed to have been saved from an assassin by a guard checking on him at midnight. Whether the story is true matters less than the tradition it spawned, another layer of vigilance woven into the fabric of imperial security. I sometimes reflect on the irony that I, the most powerful man in the civilized world, cannot even sleep without armed men standing guard over my unconscious form. Power and vulnerability walk hand in hand down the corridors of history. How many emperors have fallen despite such precautions? Nicephorus Phocas, that great warrior, was murdered in his bedchamber despite his guards. Maurice was dragged from his bed before being executed. The purple offers no true protection against determined treachery. A soft sound from the corridor, the barely perceptible shuffle of armor as the guards change position. They are trained to move in absolute silence, but no human discipline is perfect. That tiny sound is strangely reassuring, a reminder that living men, not statues, keep watch through the long night hours. I close my eyes, trying to surrender to sleep, aware of the peculiar paradox of my position. I rule an empire that stretches across 3 continents, command armies that can reduce cities to rubble, issue edicts that can raise men to glory or condemn them to oblivion. Yet here, in the vulnerability of approaching sleep, I am utterly dependent on the loyalty of a handful of men standing vigil in the darkness. This, perhaps, is the ultimate lesson of power, that even emperors must trust, must rely on others, must close their eyes and surrender to the night. Outside my chamber, the excubitors stand unwavering, Their vigilance continues through the deepest hours of night, through that liminal time when the veil between worlds seems thinnest. They stand not just for me, but for the Empire itself, for the unbroken line of authority that stretches back to Constantine. In their silent watch, there is something profound, a living embodiment of the oath that binds us all, from emperor to common soldier, in service to something greater than ourselves. The silk whispers against my skin as I finally recline. This is not ordinary silk, but the finest the Empire can produce. Imperial silk from our royal workshops in Constantinople, where the secrets of its making are guarded as jealously as the Empire's borders. The sheets are dyed the palest shade of azure, a color chosen not for beauty alone, but because our physicians claim it promotes tranquil sleep. Beneath me, the mattress is stuffed with the softest down from swans that grace the imperial lakes. I run my fingers across the embroidered border of my pillow, golden thread depicting scenes from the life of Alexander the Great, that other ruler whose empire stretched toward the rising sun. Even in our sleeping chambers, we Byzantine emperors surround ourselves with reminders of greatness, as if history might seep into our dreams and guide our waking decisions. Few know that beneath these luxurious trappings, my actual sleeping garments are relatively simple. While court ceremonial requires magnificent display, sleep demands a different kind of comfort. My night tunic is of unadorned white silk, its only distinction being the small purple squares embroidered at the shoulders, the tableon that marks imperial rank. Over this, as I mentioned earlier, comes the woolen cowl that reminds me of mortality. This duality is the essence of Byzantine imperial existence. Divine authority draped in human frailty. For all the splendor that surrounds me, the actual surface on which I sleep would surprise many. The mattress, while covered in silk, is notably firm. The physicians of the palace insist that too soft a sleeping surface weakens the imperial spine and clouds the mind upon waking. Justinian the Great, that most tireless of emperors, reportedly slept on a simple pallet, claiming that comfort invited excessive sleep, and an emperor who sleeps too deeply loses part of his empire each night. My pillow contains another secret. Nestled within the swan down is a small sachet of dried herbs, lavender, chamomile, and certain other plants known only to the imperial herbalists. These are replaced weekly and are said to promote lucid dreaming. For Byzantine emperors, dreams are not merely nighttime fancies, but potential divine messages. Constantine himself converted after a dream. How could his successors ignore what might come in sleep? The imperial bed is positioned precisely within the chamber, its orientation determined by both practical and symbolic considerations. It faces east toward the rising sun, so that the first light of morning falls upon the emperor's face, a gentle yet unmistakable reminder that a new day of governance has begun. The placement also ensures that I face the direction of Jerusalem. As I sleep, my unconscious body aligned toward the holy city. Above me stretches the bed canopy, a structure as much symbolic as functional. Its 4 posts represent the 4 corners of the earth over which imperial authority extends. The fabric draped across it shields not just from drafts, but from metaphysical threats, the unseen world that Byzantine cosmology recognizes as ever-present. Delicate golden chains suspend small silver crosses at each corner, further reinforcing this spiritual protection. The Emperor Michael III, called the Drunkard by his detractors, scandalized the court by replacing the traditional crosses on his bed with small golden figures of ancient deities. His assassination shortly thereafter was viewed by many as divine retribution for this impiety. Such stories serve as pointed reminders that even in sleep, an emperor's choices carry weight. As I settle against the pillows, I feel the familiar pressure of something hidden beneath them. This is the imperial sleep dagger, a small blade kept always within reach. Its presence is another paradox of imperial slumber. seeking rest while prepared for danger. I have never needed to reach for it, thank God. But its cool metal presence beneath the silk is oddly comforting, like an old friend, keeping silent vigil. Few outside the imperial household know that Byzantine emperors travel with their own bedding. Even when I campaign with the army or visit distant provinces, my personal sheets, pillows, and even the sleep dagger follow me, transported in cedar chests sealed with imperial lead bullae. This is partly practical, ensuring imperial comfort, but also deeply symbolic. Wherever the emperor lays his head, there is the heart of empire, even if temporarily. I shift slightly, finding the most comfortable position. The weight of the day's governance still presses upon my shoulders, but the silk's gentle embrace begins to dissolve it. There is an art to imperial sleep, one not taught in any book but learned through experience. One must carry enough concern for the empire to remain vigilant, yet release enough to find rest. Too much alertness prevents sleep. Too much abandonment invites both physical and political disaster. One of the more curious traditions surrounding imperial sleep involves the imperial slippers, crafted of soft leather dyed purple and embroidered with golden eagles. They remain positioned at the foot of the bed, precisely arranged so that the emperor's feet will enter them without looking when he rises. They must never be moved during the night, not even by a hair's breadth. Court superstition holds that the direction they face influences the empire's fortunes in the coming day. The soft weight of the silk comforter settles over me, its surface embroidered with scenes from the Psalms. David dancing before the ark, David in prayerful contemplation, David receiving divine wisdom, all reminders that kingship and piety must walk hand in hand. I wonder sometimes if David, that other ruler chosen by God, found sleep as elusive as emperors often do. As my body relaxes into the imperial bed, I become aware of how my physical position mirrors the political reality of Byzantium itself. Cushioned, yet constrained by tradition, supported yet restricted by the very symbols of power that elevate me. This paradox extends to every aspect of imperial existence. The silk that caresses my skin also binds me to protocols established centuries before my birth. I close my eyes, feeling the weight of the empire temporarily lift from my shoulders, transferred to the vigilant guards, the praying monks, the ever-turning machinery of imperial governance that continues even as I rest. There is comfort in this surrender, in the knowledge that for a few precious hours, I may be simply a man rather than an institution. My breathing slows. The silk rustles softly with each breath a gentle lullaby of luxury. As consciousness begins to fade, I reflect that perhaps this is the true meaning of imperial privilege. Not the gold, not the adulation, but this brief respite from the relentless weight of the purple. Sleep comes at last, and for a few blessed hours the emperor joins his humblest subjects in that most democratic of human experiences, surrender to dreams. Before final darkness enfolds me, there comes another ritual, one as old as empire itself. The imperial reader approaches my bedside with measured steps, bearing a selection of manuscripts. His office dates back to the earliest days of Byzantium, when Constantine himself would listen to sacred texts before surrendering to sleep. Tonight, the reader is Theodorus, a soft-spoken scholar from Athens, whose voice has the rare quality of being both clear and soothing. "What shall it be tonight, your imperial majesty?" he asks, though the question is largely ceremonial. There is an established rotation of texts deemed appropriate for imperial contemplation before sleep. "The usual progression," I reply, settling deeper into the pillows as he unfurls the first scroll. He begins with selected passages from Scripture. Tonight, from the Wisdom of Solomon, that most kingly of biblical books. The words fall into the hushed chamber like gentle rain. "Love righteousness, ye that be judges of the earth. For wisdom is more moving than any motion. She passeth and goeth through all things by reason of her pureness. the ancient council, to rulers resonates across the centuries, as relevant now as when first penned. After scripture comes history, specifically, the great deeds of my imperial predecessors. Tonight's selection recounts how Emperor Heraclius recovered the true cross from the Persians, carrying it on his own back into Jerusalem. The account reminds me that even in darkness, even against overwhelming odds, an emperor anointed by God may triumph. I need such reminders, especially now, with barbarians pressing our borders and conspiracies flowering like poisonous blooms within the palace itself. The third category of reading is perhaps the most curious. Excerpts from the Secret Imperial, guidebooks passed from ruler to ruler. These texts, never seen by common eyes, contain the distilled wisdom of generations of Byzantine governance. My own copy, bound in purple leather and secured with a golden lock, was presented to me on my coronation day. From it, Theodorus reads passages concerning the balance of firmness and mercy, the arts of discerning true counsel from flattery, and the management of church relations. Remember, he reads, his voice dropping to ensure these words reach only imperial ears, that no emperor rules alone. Behind every successful reign stands a network of loyal officials, each knowing precisely enough to serve but not enough to threaten. Compartmentalize information as you would separate volatile substances in the laboratories of the palace. Such pragmatic advice sits uneasily alongside the spiritual guidance that preceded it. Yet this tension defines Byzantine rulership. Practical power, sanctified by divine blessing. Worldly cunning elevated by heavenly purpose. In the drowsy space between wakefulness and sleep, these contradictions seem less troubling, more complementary. A peculiar tradition associated with imperial readings that few outsiders know. 3 different manuscripts of each text are maintained, with the reader randomly selecting one each night. This practice emerged after an attempted assassination of Emperor Leo VI, when poisoned pages were discovered in his bedtime reading. The toxin meant to be absorbed through the skin as the emperor turned the pages. Since then, no one but the reader knows which text will be used until the moment of reading. The fourth category of reading is the most personal, the private journals of my own predecessor. These writings reveal the man behind the office, often showing touching humanity behind imperial pronouncements. Tonight, Theodorus reads from the journal of my grandfather, his reflections after the birth of his first grandson, me. Today I held the future of Byzantium, he reads, and I feel a tightness in my chest at hearing my grandfather's private thoughts. So small, this child who may one day wear the purple. I prayed not for his glory, but for his wisdom, not for his power, but for his compassion. The empire needs not just rulers, but caretakers. Did he know as he wrote those words, how short his own remaining time would be? Did he sense that I would ascend the throne earlier than anyone expected? These questions find no answers in the measured cadence of Theodorus's reading. The final reading is always poetry, not the grand epics or formal odes performed in public ceremonies, but smaller, more contemplative works. Tonight, it is verses from Anna Komnene, that imperial princess whose pen proved mightier than many swords. Her meditation on the transience of power seems particularly fitting as sleep approaches. Purple fades with time, and gold returns to earth. What remains is neither wealth nor title, but the mercy shown, the justice rendered, the peace preserved through wisdom rather than force. As Theodorus reads, I notice how the lamplight catches on the gold leaf illuminating the manuscript's borders. Byzantine books are works of art as much as vessels of knowledge, each page a testament to our belief that beauty and wisdom belong together. The expense of such manuscripts, the precious parchment, the rare pigments, the hours of skilled labor, makes them luxuries few outside the imperial circle could ever hope to possess. When the readings conclude, a curious ritual follows. Theodorus closes the final manuscript, bows deeply, and recites from memory a list of all Byzantine emperors, from Constantine to myself. This recitation serves as a bridge between written wisdom and imperial dreams, a verbal thread connecting me to my predecessors as I drift towards sleep. Some names bring pride: Justinian the lawgiver, Basil the Bulgar slayer. Others serve as warnings: Phocas the tyrant, Alexios III the coward. Together they form the tapestry of Byzantine rule, its glories and failures alike. With the litany of emperors complete, Theodorus withdraws, walking backward so as never to turn his back on imperial presence, even in this intimate setting. The manuscripts remain on a small table beside my bed, not for reading should I wake in the night, but as symbolic guardians of imperial sleep. Wisdom watching over power, mind protecting body. I ponder sometimes whether other men dream differently than emperors. Do merchants dream of ledgers, sailors of distant shores, farmers of ripening grain? Or do all men, regardless of station, ultimately dream of the same human concerns: love and fear, triumph and failure, life and its inevitable end? Perhaps in sleep, the purple that sets me apart by day fades into the universal human condition. Thoughts grow increasingly nebulous as sleep tugs at the edges of consciousness. The words I have heard mingle together, creating new combinations, new insights. This liminal space between waking and sleeping is often where the most profound imperial inspirations arise. Policies that seem divinely inspired by morning light. I have learned to pay attention to these threshold thoughts, these whispers between worlds. The last lamp burns low, its flame reflecting on the golden covers of manuscripts nearby. In this gentle illumination, as my eyelids grow heavy, the ancient words seem to hover in the air above me, a canopy of wisdom more protective than any physical guard. I surrender to their guidance, allowing centuries of imperial knowledge to follow me into the realm of dreams. The water glistens in the silver basin, catching the last flickering light of evening candles. Not ordinary water, but blessed water, sanctified through ancient rituals, imbued with spiritual properties that science cannot measure but faith affirms without question. My evening ablutions are far more than mere cleanliness. They are a sacred threshold between the cares of imperial governance and the vulnerability of sleep. The imperial water-bearer approaches, a young deacon selected for both his piety and his discretion. He carries not only the silver basin, but a crystal vial containing water from the Jordan River itself, collected during the Feast of Theophany when the waters of the world are blessed in remembrance of Christ's baptism. This most precious liquid is used sparingly, just a few drops added to the basin of locally blessed water, a practice that connects my nightly ritual to the very river where our Lord was baptized. I extend my hands over the basin as the water-bearer pours a thin stream over them. The water is neither hot nor cold, but perfectly temperate, heated precisely to match the temperature of the body, as prescribed by the imperial physicians. Too cold, they claim, and it shocks the system. Before sleep, too warm, and it relaxes one too quickly, potentially allowing malevolent influences to enter the drowsy mind. Such precise attention to detail surrounds every aspect of imperial existence. As the water flows over my hands, I recite softly, "As I wash my hands in innocence, so may my soul be cleansed of all that separates me from divine wisdom." The words are ancient, spoken by Byzantine emperors since the time of Theodosius II, who established many of our current sleep rituals after reportedly receiving divine guidance in a dream. The ritual continues as the water-bearer dampens a soft cloth of Egyptian linen and offers it to me. I press it gently against my face, feeling the blessed moisture against my eyelids, my forehead, my lips. These are the portals through which both blessing and corruption can enter. The eyes that witness, the mind that judges, the mouth that commands. All must be purified before the emperor surrenders to the vulnerability of sleep. A curious aspect of this ritual that few beyond the palace walls know. The water used for imperial ablutions is never discarded into common drains. After I have completed my washing, the water-bearer collects every drop and carries it to a special marble basin in the palace chapel, where it will be reverently returned to the earth through a channel that leads to a garden of herbs used only for imperial medicines. In this way, it is believed, the blessing remains within the imperial cycle, a closed loop of sanctity. The ritual's origins stretch back to pre-Christian times, when Roman emperors performed ritual washing before consulting oracles or seeking significant dreams. When the empire embraced Christianity, these practices were not abandoned but transformed, baptized, one might say, into expressions of Christian piety. We Byzantines have always excelled at preserving useful traditions by infusing them with new meaning. After my face and hands are cleansed, a more specialized ritual begins, one unique to the imperial bedchamber. The water-bearer produces a smaller vessel of silver, engraved with scenes of Christ's baptism. This contains a mixture of blessed water and rose oil. With this, he traces the sign of the cross upon my forehead, a gesture repeated nightly since the reign of Justin I. "May the waters of baptism protect your thoughts," he murmurs, the traditional words accompanying this gesture. Then, most curious of all the water rituals, he places 3 drops of the blessed water on the inside of each of my wrists, where the pulse can be felt. This practice dates to Emperor Heraclius, who claimed that sanctified water applied to the blood's pathway would carry divine protection throughout the body during the vulnerable hours of sleep. The sensation is always striking, a momentary coolness that seems to spread up my arms and toward my heart. "May the waters of mercy flow through your veins," the water-bearer intones, guiding your hands to works of justice and compassion when you wake. I often reflect on how these rituals connect me to my predecessors. Did Constantine himself feel this same momentary chill at his wrists? Did Justinian contemplate the same mingling of physical cleansing and spiritual purification? There is comfort in this continuity, this thread of shared experience woven through centuries of imperial nights. The final element of the water ritual is perhaps the most symbolic. A silver chalice is presented, containing water blessed specifically for imperial consumption. Unlike the water used for washing, this comes from the sacred spring beneath the Hagia Sophia, said to have been discovered during the church's construction, when workmen followed a mysterious dog to its source. The water from this spring is believed to induce prophetic dreams when consumed before sleep. I take 3 small sips, never more, never less, representing the trinity that guards imperial slumber. The water tastes slightly mineral, with an indefinable sweetness that no other water possesses. Is it the silver of the chalice, the particular minerals of the spring, or perhaps the power of belief itself that creates this distinctive taste? I have never sought to analyze this mystery too closely, preferring to accept its wonder as I accept the greater mysteries of faith. As I return the chalice, the water-bearer recites the prayer of holy slumber, his voice barely above a whisper. As water shaped the world at creation's dawn, as water parted for God's chosen to pass through, as water became wine at Cana's feast, as water washed the feet of those Christ loved, so may this blessed water prepare your servant for the journey through night's sacred mysteries. The significance of water in our faith is profound. The waters of creation, the parted sea, the baptism in the Jordan, the water from Christ's side upon the cross. Each night, through these rituals, I connect my vulnerable sleeping self to these sacred waters of tradition. My imperial person becomes a vessel both containing and contained by divine protection. With the water rituals complete, there is a palpable shift in the chamber's atmosphere. A freshness lingers in the air, a crispness that seems to clarify thought, even as it invites surrender to sleep. My body feels lighter somehow, purified in preparation for the night's journey through dreams. The blessed moisture evaporating from my skin creates an almost imperceptible boundary between myself and the physical world. A liminal space where waking thought can begin to dissolve into the wisdom of slumber. The water-bearer withdraws with the vessels, walking backward as all servants must when leaving imperial presence. I am left with the fading sensation of blessed water on my skin, the subtle scent of rose oil, and the curious weightlessness that follows proper preparation for sleep. Even my eyelids feel consecrated now, ready to close upon a world of imperial concerns and open onto whatever dreams divine providence has prepared for this night. The boundary between wakefulness and dreaming thins, becomes permeable. I feel myself drifting across this sacred threshold, leaving behind the weight of imperial consciousness for the mysterious realm where emperors before me have received divine guidance. In Byzantium, an emperor's dreams are never merely personal. They are potential messages from God, omens of imperial fortune, glimpses of providence's design. As sleep deepens, I enter first what our dream interpreters call the shallow waters, that twilight realm where images from the day mingle and transform. I see the faces of today's petitioners, the maps from the War Council, fragments of diplomatic correspondence, but these are merely the outer courts of Dream's palace. The true sanctum lies deeper. The imperial dreamscape shifts, becomes more vivid, more symbolic. This transition is familiar to me now. The moment when ordinary dreams give way to those that the imperial oneirocritics, our specialized dream interpreters, would record in their purple-bound journals. These deeper dreams are considered state property, not personal experiences. Since the time of Justinian, imperial dreams have been documented, analyzed, and archived in a special section of the palace library, accessible only to the emperor and a select few dream scholars. Tonight, I find myself walking through a vast basilica that resembles Hagia Sophia, but extends impossibly beyond mortal dimensions. Its domes multiply endlessly toward heaven, each one bearing the face of a previous emperor. I recognize Constantine, Justinian, Heraclius, Basil, their mosaic features watching my progress through this impossible architecture. This is a common landscape in imperial dreams, the endless church, the watching ancestors. A figure approaches, a woman wearing imperial regalia, but with her face obscured by a golden veil. I recognize her immediately as the personification of Constantinople, herself, a frequent visitor in imperial dreaming. According to our dream scholars, her appearance portends decisions affecting the capital's fate. She speaks, her voice resonating with the peculiar clarity dreams sometimes possess. 3 threats approach your walls, she says. One visible, one hidden, one disguised as friendship. Such cryptic pronouncements are the very substance of imperial dreams. By morning, the chief onirocratist will analyze this message, comparing it to historical dream patterns, consulting ancient dream books preserved since Roman times, seeking concordance with current affairs. Emperor Leo VI, called the Wise, reportedly made no significant decision without first consulting both his dreams and the intricate interpretations provided by his dream scholars. The veiled empress extends her hand, revealing an ancient coin resting on her palm. The coin continuously transforms, first bearing my own profile, then the face of my predecessor, then images of emperors I do not recognize. Future rulers, perhaps? The symbolism is potent, reminding me that I am merely one link in the imperial chain, both shaped by those who came before and shaping those who will follow. Remember, she says, what is built in darkness stands strongest in light. The dream shifts again. I stand atop the Theodosian walls, watching as 3 seas, one red, one black, one golden, crash against Constantinople's defenses. The symbolism needs little interpretation even within the dream itself. Blood, death, and wealth, the eternal waves that batter all empires. Yet our walls stand firm, as they have for 1,000 years. Few outside the imperial circle know that Byzantine emperors received specialized training in dream recall from earliest childhood. Imperial children learn techniques for remembering dreams in precise detail, methods developed by ancient oniromancers and refined through centuries of practice. We are taught to recognize certain symbols unique to imperial dreaming. The purple, boots that signify secure succession. The broken column that warns of military defeat. The flowering rod that promises diplomatic triumph. I move now through a series of gardens, each representing a province of the empire. Some bloom with vibrant flowers, others appear withered or overrun with weeds. This landscape is a dream map of imperial health, a symbolic representation of the realm's condition, visible only to the sleeping emperor. I make mental note of which regions appear troubled. Cappadocia's roses are wilting, while Armenia's lilies grow too aggressively, threatening neighboring plots. Such details will be reported to the dream interpreters immediately upon waking. The practice of imperial dream interpretation dates to the earliest days of Byzantium, but it reached its most sophisticated form under the Macedonian dynasty. The Emperor Constantine VII, Porphyrogenitus, established a formal imperial dream academy, where scholars studied both Christian dream theory and the older traditions preserved from Artemidorus and other ancient authorities. The resulting synthesis was uniquely Byzantine, dream interpretation that honored both classical wisdom and orthodox theology. Now my dream self enters the imperial treasury, where something unexpected occurs. The crowns of former emperors begin to speak, each voice sharing a singular piece of wisdom. This is a rare dream pattern that the honoricritics call the Council of Crowns, believed to occur only when the empire stands at some crucial juncture. I listen carefully, knowing these words will require special attention in the morning's interpretation, a peculiar aspect of imperial dream protocol that few outsiders know. Certain dreams are considered too significant to be trusted to memory alone. If I experience what is called a purple dream, one containing clear divine guidance or extraordinary portents, I am to ring a special bell beside my bed immediately upon waking. This summons the night scribe, who records the dream verbatim before it can fade from memory. These accounts are then sealed with the imperial signet and placed in a special archive beneath the palace, where the accumulated dreams of emperors form a shadow history of Byzantium. The dream continues its mysterious unfolding. I find myself seated in the kathisma of the hippodrome, watching as chariots race below. Each is drawn by different beasts, not just horses but lions, eagles, oxen, creatures of symbolism rather than nature. The charioteer driving the vehicle pulled by matched white horses wears my face, while his competitors bear the features of neighboring rulers: the Caliph, the Bulgarian Tsar, the Holy Roman Emperor. The race outcome will surely be scrutinized by the dream interpreters for diplomatic implications. Dreams have shaped Byzantine history more profoundly than many historians acknowledge. Constantine's vision of the cross with its promise of victory led to the empire's Christianization. Justinian reportedly conceived his magnificent rebuilding of Hagia Sophia in a dream. The Emperor Heraclius claimed divine dreams guided his war strategy against the Persians. Whether these dreams truly occurred or were carefully constructed, imperial propaganda matters less than the culture that made such claims credible. As my dream begins to dissolve, returning me to the shallower waters near waking, a final image appears. A book with pages of thin crystal, each one revealing a different possible future for the empire. I try to read as many as possible before they fade, knowing that by morning I will remember only fragments. This too is part of the burden of imperial dreams. The knowledge that even in sleep, choices made and opportunities missed shape the destiny of millions. I have often wondered whether my dreams are truly different from those of common men, or if the difference lies solely in how they are received and interpreted. Does a merchant dream with the same symbolic richness, but lack the scholars to unveil its meanings? Or does the purple truly infuse even our unconscious thoughts, setting emperors apart even in the democracy of sleep? These questions find no easy answers, neither in waking philosophy nor in dreams themselves. The last images fade as I drift toward morning consciousness. By imperial protocol, my first words upon waking must be a summary of significant dreams, spoken to the dream recorder, who waits silently each dawn. The Empire's future may well depend on the wisdom gathered in these nocturnal journeys. These conversations with destiny that only emperors can access. This too is the burden and the privilege of the purple. To dream not just for oneself, but for an empire. The astrologers arrive as the night deepens. They move with the quiet precision of men accustomed to reading the silent language of stars. 3 of them enter my bedchamber, never more, never fewer, each representing a different tradition of celestial wisdom, Greek, Persian, and our own unique Byzantine synthesis. Their presence here, in the heart of an Orthodox Christian empire, embodies the pragmatic dualities of Byzantine governance. Officially, the Church condemns astrology as pagan superstition. Privately, no emperor would dream of sleeping without consulting the heavens. The chief imperial astrologer, Theodorus of Trebizond, unrolls a parchment chart on the small table beside my bed. His fingers, stained with ink and mysterious powders, trace the configurations of planets and stars specific to this night. The chart is a marvel of Byzantine scientific art. Concentric circles of gold and silver leaf representing the celestial spheres, with the positions of heavenly bodies marked in pigments of varying colors. Mercury in cinnabar red, Venus in soft green malachite, Mars in blood-red ochre, Jupiter in royal blue azurite, Saturn in somber lead white. The heavens speak clearly tonight, your serenity, Theodorus murmurs, his voice calibrated to the hushed atmosphere of the imperial bedchamber. Jupiter ascends in your house of governance, while Saturn retreats from the house of enemies. A favorable alignment for making decisions concerning the eastern provinces tomorrow. I nod, taking in the information without comment. Byzantine emperors maintain a calculated ambiguity regarding astrology, never explicitly endorsing it, but carefully noting its counsel nonetheless. This studied ambivalence dates back to Constantine himself, who, while embracing Christianity, never fully abandoned the celestial practices that guided Roman emperors before him. A particularly Byzantine innovation in imperial astrology is the practice of double interpretation. Each celestial event is analyzed twice, once according to classical astrological tradition, and once through the lens of Christian symbolism. Thus, a comet might simultaneously portend military threat, classical reading, and call for increased piety, Christian reading. This dual approach allows us to embrace the pragmatic benefits of astrological foresight while maintaining orthodox theological propriety. The second astrologer, Malik al-Farsi, approaches with an astrolabe of stunning complexity. This brass instrument, inlaid with silver and ivory, was a gift from the Abbasid Caliph during more peaceful times. Despite our theological differences with the Muslim world, we Byzantines have always respected their astronomical knowledge. The astrolabe's intricate mechanisms allow precise calculation of celestial positions specific to Constantinople's location. The hour of the bull approaches, Malik observes, adjusting the astrolabe's rotating disc. The optimal moment for imperial rest begins in 27 minutes, when the constellation of strength aligns with the palace meridian. This timing of imperial sleep is no small matter. Since the reign of Theodosius II, Byzantine emperors have coordinated their sleep schedule with celestial movements believed to strengthen imperial authority and protect against both physical and spiritual threats during vulnerability. The practice intensified after Emperor Constans II, who ignored his astrologer's timing recommendations, was assassinated in his bath. Coincidence, perhaps, but no subsequent emperor has been willing to take the risk. The third astrologer, a monk named Brother, Cosmos represents the Christianized face of Byzantine starcraft. His presence reconciles the apparent contradiction between orthodox doctrine and astrological practice. Trained both at the Patriarchal Academy and in the secret astronomical traditions preserved in certain monasteries, he ensures that nothing in the night's celestial council contradicts divine will as expressed through the Church. The heavens declare the glory of God, Brother Cosmos intones, quoting Psalm 19 while examining the star chart. Tonight, the stars of the Eastern Cross shine with particular brightness, a blessing on your Serenity's contemplation of Church matters. A curious aspect of imperial astrology that few outside the palace know. Each Byzantine emperor is assigned a personal star upon coronation, selected through complex calculations involving birth date, coronation date, and the numerical values of the emperor's official names. This star becomes a celestial counterpart to imperial authority. My own star is in the constellation we call the Guardian, near what Western astronomers name Arcturus. Each night, my astrologers note its brightness and position, correlating atmospheric variations with imperial fortune. Theodorus now produces a small silk bag containing specialized astrological tools used only in the imperial bedchamber. From it, he withdraws 7 small crystal spheres, each representing a planetary body. These are arranged in a specific pattern on a silver tray placed beneath my bed, a physical manifestation of favorable celestial alignments, designed to influence my dreams and strengthen my body during sleep. Mars stands opposed to your ascendant tonight, he notes, placing the red sphere slightly apart from the others. It would be wise to avoid making military decisions in the morning hours. Such specific counsel might seem overly deterministic, but Byzantine astrology teaches that celestial influences incline rather than compel. Stars propose, emperors dispose. The information guides without dictating, providing another layer of wisdom to consider alongside dreams, advisors, and personal judgment. Emperor Leo VI, called the Wise, formalized the role of bedside astrology in Byzantine imperial practice. His treatise, On Celestial Influences Upon Imperial Governance, remains the foundational text, kept under lock and key in the palace library. Leo argued that while Christian faith provides spiritual protection, prudent rulers should use every available tool to anticipate earthly challenges. The treatise includes the controversial assertion that God speaks through stars as well as Scripture, a claim that prompted patriarchal objections but was never officially withdrawn. As the astrologers complete their preparations, a final ritual unfolds. Brother Cosmos traces a cross in the air above my bed, while simultaneously Malik and Theodorus mark the cardinal points with specialized astronomical symbols using chalk infused with powdered gemstones. This creates what imperial tradition calls the celestial sanctuary, a sacred space where cosmic influences are channeled toward imperial benefit and away from potential harm. I have sometimes questioned the complex relationship between faith and astrology in our Byzantine worldview. Is it contradiction or complement? Perhaps neither. We inhabit a universe where divine will expresses itself through multiple languages. The direct words of Scripture, the symbolic language of dreams, and the geometric poetry of celestial bodies. An emperor must be fluent in all these tongues, gathering wisdom wherever it may be found. The astrologers withdraw as silently as they arrived, taking their charts but leaving the crystalline planets beneath my bed. The knowledge they've shared adds another layer to my preparation for sleep. Body purified by blessed water, mind calmed by sacred readings, soul protected by prayers, and now my imperial destiny aligned with the very stars that God set in motion at creation's dawn. As sleep approaches once again, I find comfort in this integration of heaven and earth, this harmony of spiritual and material concerns that defines Byzantine civilization. Even the stars above Constantinople seem to shine with purpose, their ancient light reaching down through my window to touch the purple of my chamber. connecting the ephemeral concerns of imperial governance with the eternal movements of the cosmos. Sleep deepens, and with that depth comes vulnerability. The imperial mind, never truly at rest, begins to wander down darker corridors of possibility. Here, in this shadow realm between dreams and nightmares, lurk the faces that haunt every Byzantine. Emperor, the usurpers, the pretenders, the ambitious men who would tear the purple from legitimate shoulders and claim it for their own. I see him now in my dream, a faceless figure ascending the palace steps, sword gleaming in the torchlight. Sometimes he wears a general's armor, sometimes a courtier's fine silks, occasionally even a bishop's robes. The face shifts and changes, a kaleidoscope of potential traitors drawn from the court, the army, even my own family. This shape-shifting quality makes the nightmare all the more terrifying. The usurper could be anyone, everyone, no one. Such dreams are the nocturnal tax levied on power. No emperor escapes them. Even the great Constantine, founder of our city, reportedly suffered terrible visions of his own son Crispus returning from execution to reclaim the throne. Justinian often woke shouting the name of his general Belisarius, convinced that his most successful commander plotted against him. These nightmares are as much a part of imperial inheritance as the crown itself. In tonight's dark vision, I find myself in the Hippodrome, that most dangerous of imperial spaces. More emperors have fallen to the mob's fury there than on any battlefield. I stand in the Kathisma, the imperial box, but something is wrong. The crowd's faces are twisted in hatred. They are chanting a name, not mine, but another's. I strain to hear it, knowing that this dream detail could prove prophetic, a divine warning of genuine conspiracy. Byzantine history provides ample material for such nightmares. Emperor Maurice saw his 5 sons executed before his eyes before being beheaded himself, replaced by the usurper Phocas, Romanos IV. Diogenes was blinded after his defeat at Manzikert, dying in agony and obscurity while Michael VII took his throne. Even successful emperors like Basila began as usurpers themselves. He murdered his benefactor Michael III and stepped over the corpse to reach the throne. A peculiar aspect of imperial succession that feeds these dreams, unlike Western kingdoms, with their emphasis on direct male inheritance, Byzantine succession has always contained an element of divine election manifested through success. Put simply, if you seize the throne and hold it, God has chosen you. This theological flexibility regarding succession creates the ever-present danger that someone will test whether divine favor has shifted away from the current emperor. In my nightmare, the scene shifts to my bedchamber itself. I watch, a helpless observer, as a shadowy figure slips past the excubitors, somehow rendering these elite guards unseeing, unhearing. The intruder approaches my sleeping form with a silken cord, the traditional method for dispatching emperors without spilling imperial blood, which Byzantines consider sacrilege even in assassination. I try to cry out, to wake my dream self, but remain paralyzed, watching death approach with silent certainty. How many emperors have met their end thus? Nicephorus Phocas, that brilliant general who reconquered Crete and Cyprus, was murdered in his bedchamber by his wife Theophano and her lover John Tzimiskes, who succeeded him as emperor. Tzimiskes at least had the decency to deny the empress any benefit from her treachery, sending her into exile once he secured the throne. But such poetic justice offers cold comfort to the ruler who already sleeps in Hades. The nightmare fragments, reforms. Now I stand in the great church, Hagia Sophia, for a coronation. The patriarch raises the crown, but it is not for me. I watch, relegated to the shadows, as some other man receives the diadem, the labarum, the purple boots. The worst fate for an emperor is not death but survival after losing the throne, forced to witness another enjoying the power that was once yours. Emperor Romanos II was made to become a monk after being deposed. living out his days in bitter contemplation at a remote monastery, while his usurper ruled from the great palace. One of the more obscure torments that haunts imperial sleep. The Byzantine ceremonial book contains detailed protocols for the degradation of deposed emperors. Every item granted during coronation must be removed in reverse order, each removal accompanied by ritualized humiliation. The purple boots are taken first, then the imperial belt, the diadem, and finally the chlamys itself, stripped away to leave the former ruler naked before his successor's justice. I have read these protocols, as all emperors must. They linger in the mind, emerging in nightmares like tonight's. The dream shifts again. I am now in the porphyry chamber where my son was born, but it is being systematically destroyed. Workers chip away at the precious purple stone, erasing all evidence that my dynasty ever ruled. This represents another imperial fear, damnatio memoriae, the complete eradication of one's legacy. Usurpers often try to eliminate all traces of their predecessors, destroying statues, removing names from monuments, even rewriting histories. In my nightmare, I am not only deposed but erased, my very existence denied to future generations. What makes these nightmares particularly Byzantine is their blend of political calculation and supernatural dread. I do not merely fear losing power, I fear divine abandonment. If God permits a usurper to succeed, it means he has withdrawn his favor from me, judged me unworthy of the purple he once granted. This theological dimension transforms mundane political anxiety into existential spiritual crisis. A question surfaces from the nightmare's depths. Does the constant fear of usurpation make us better emperors or merely more paranoid ones? The shadow of potential overthrow looms over every decision, every appointment, every policy. Sometimes it leads to wisdom. We cultivate loyalty, practice justice, moderate our excesses. Other times it curdles into suspicion and preemptive cruelty. The historical record suggests that fearful emperors often create the very conditions that lead to their downfall. In the darkest part of the dream, I face a hall of mirrors, each reflecting a potential usurper wearing my crown. One by one, they step through the glass, surrounding me, closing in. But then, a shaft of light breaks through the imperial gloom. The figure of Christ Pantocrator appears, the same image that watches over me from the dome of Hagia Sophia. He raises his hand in blessing, not toward me specifically, but toward the office I temporarily hold. A reminder that while emperors may fall, the empire continues under divine protection. I wake briefly, heart pounding, before settling back into lighter sleep. These imperial nightmares serve their purpose. They keep complacency at bay. Tomorrow, perhaps, I will look with fresher eyes at those who surround me. I will note which general seems too ambitious, which nephew studies the protocols of succession too diligently, which eunuch cultivates too many personal loyalties within the palace. Hierarchy. The nightmare fades, but its warning lingers. This, too, is part of an emperor's sleep, to dream not just of triumph and divine favor, but of betrayal and fall, to rest with one eye ever open, like the eagles in our imperial symbols. For in Byzantium, the distance between throne and tomb can be as short as a single night's intrigue. The silence of my chamber is not complete. Through the purple darkness drifts a sound so ethereal that it seems to exist between worlds, neither fully present nor entirely absent. The imperial musicians have taken their positions in the antechamber, invisible to my eyes but sending their harmonies through the partially opened door. This music is the final veil between imperial consciousness and sleep, a sonic bridge to dreams. Tonight, as on most nights, the ensemble consists of 7 musicians, a number chosen for its cosmic significance, representing the planetary spheres. The leader of this nocturnal ensemble is Anthemius, a blind man from Thessalonica, whose loss of sight seems to have heightened his musical sensibilities. His family has served the imperial bedchamber for 6 generations. each son learning the sacred melodies that no written notation could adequately capture. The hydraulis, our magnificent water organ, begins with a low, sustained note that seems to vibrate within my very bones. Unlike the thunderous hydraulis that announces imperial processions in the hippodrome, this smaller chamber instrument produces sounds of extraordinary delicacy. Water pressure regulated by hidden mechanisms creates a sound both mechanical and organic, a perfect emblem of Byzantine civilization itself, nature and human ingenuity working in divine harmony. Joining the hydraulis comes the soft voice of the pandura, its 3 strings creating melodies that weave through the organ's foundation like golden threads through imperial purple. The musician plays with a plectrum of eagle bone, a material used only for imperial performances, believed to produce a tone that particularly soothes royal minds. Next enters the kanonaki, its many strings plucked to create cascading notes, like gentle rainfall on the palace roof. Byzantine musical theory differs significantly from what other lands consider harmonious. Our sacred music avoids the simple triadic harmonies favored by Western churches, embracing instead the complex modal system inherited from ancient Greece, but transformed through centuries of liturgical use. The 8 ecclesiastical modes, each with its specific emotional and spiritual character, provide the framework for these imperial lullabies. A curious aspect of imperial sleep music that few outside the palace know. Certain melodies are considered state secrets, played only within the imperial bedchamber. These particular sequences of notes, passed down from master to apprentice through oral tradition alone, are believed to access parts of the imperial mind associated with divine inspiration. Emperor Leo VI reportedly received the solution to a Persian diplomatic crisis through a dream induced by one such protected melody. The musicians now transition to the mode of imperial repose, a melodic structure dating back to Justinian's reign. Unlike the public music of Byzantium, these private compositions incorporate subtle references to pre-Christian themes, acknowledging the empire's ancient roots. I detect motifs that echo the Orphic mysteries, transformed and baptized by centuries of Christian practice, but retaining their primordial power to guide the soul between realms of consciousness. My personal musician, Stephanos, now introduces his instrument, the Byzantine lyra. Held upright against his knee, its 3 strings produce tones of extraordinary purity. Stephanos plays with his eyes closed, swaying slightly, his fingers finding positions with unerring accuracy. The chroniclers claim that when the Empress Theodora was dying, Justinian summoned the greatest lyra player in the empire to ease her passage. The music was said to be so beautiful that angels paused in their celestial duties to listen. The combination of instruments creates not merely music, but a tapestry of sounds specifically designed to separate imperial concerns from imperial consciousness. Each instrument corresponds to an element of governance that must be temporarily surrendered to sleep. The hydraulis represents public ceremony, the pandora embodies military matters, the kanonaki signifies diplomatic relations, and the lyra symbolizes the emperor's personal authority. As each instrument plays, I feel these burdens lifting, one by one. A female voice now joins the instruments, the imperial nightingale, a title bestowed on only the most gifted singer in the empire. The current holder, Anna of Mytilene, possesses a voice that seems scarcely human in its beauty. She sings without words, using only pure vowel sounds, another tradition dating to ancient mystery cults, but preserved in our imperial sleep rituals. The absence of language appeals directly to the pre-verbal regions of the mind, bypassing the logical faculties that must remain vigilant during daylight hours. Few realize that Byzantine emperors travel with their sleep musicians even on military campaigns. A reduced ensemble, usually 3 players, accompanies the imperial tent, maintaining this crucial ritual even in war zones. Emperor Basil II, the Bulgar Slayer, was particularly insistent on this practice, claiming that the rite Melodies before sleep brought him tactical insights no council of generals could provide. The musicians now perform a subtle transition into what court composers call the descending sequence. Melodies that gradually lower in pitch and slow in tempo, guiding the imperial mind deeper towards sleep's embrace. This technique, developed during the 7th century, draws on medical theories regarding the humors and their relationship to states of consciousness. The melody physically alters the flow of subtle fluids within the imperial body, our physicians claim, preparing it for restorative sleep. I feel my breathing synchronizing with the rhythm, each exhale growing longer, each inhale more measured. This entrainment between imperial body and imperial music is intentional. The composers craft phrases exactly long enough to encourage slower, deeper breaths. Is this why emperors are thought to dream differently than common men? Perhaps our dreams are shaped not merely by the concerns of governance, but by the very rhythms that accompany our descent into sleep. One particularly moving piece now begins, a melody said to have been composed by Emperor Constantine VII Porphyrogenitus himself. A ruler known more for his scholarly achievements than his military ones, Constantine understood the profound relationship between music and imperial consciousness. The piece contains subtle mathematical relationships that correspond to the proportions of Hagia Sophia, creating a sonic architecture that mirrors our greatest cathedral. As it plays, I can almost feel my mind expanding into a dome of sound, supported by pillars of melody. The most sacred of the sleep compositions comes last, the Emperor's Farewell Today. Tradition holds that this melody has remained unchanged since Constantine the Great, though historians in the palace library quietly suggest it may be a more recent creation, attributed to antiquity for prestige. Regardless of its true origin, the effect is profound. The instruments unite in a harmony that seems to gather the disparate parts of imperial consciousness and gently fold them away, like the ceremonial folding of imperial garments at day's full end. As this final piece concludes, the musicians do not stop abruptly, but allow their notes to fade gradually into silence, creating an imperceptible boundary between music and its absence. This technique prevents the imperial mind from being jarred back to wakefulness by sudden silence. Instead, music becomes memory, becomes dream in one continuous flow. I wonder sometimes about the musicians themselves. Do they understand the power they wield over imperial consciousness? Do they know that the security of Constantinople rests partly on the quality of its emperor's sleep, and thus on the beauty of their midnight harmonies? Perhaps it is better they don't fully comprehend their importance. Like so many elements of imperial governance, effectiveness often depends on each person fulfilling their role without seeing the entire design. The last notes dissolve into the darkness of my chamber. The musicians will remain in the antechamber until certain I am asleep, ready to resume should I wake in the night. For now, their melody continues its work within me, transforming from external sound to internal rhythm, guiding me deeper into the true music of sleep's embrace. The chamber grows quieter now, but I am never truly alone. Even in this most private hour, the Byzantine emperor exists at the center of a carefully orchestrated system of attendance. As I drift toward deeper sleep, I remain dimly aware of the silent figures who maintain their vigil throughout the night. The eunuchs and servants who guard not merely my physical person, but the very continuity of imperial authority. Closest to my bedside stands Michael, the prefect of the sacred bedchamber. Like all who hold this most intimate of court positions, he is a eunuch, his body altered in childhood to make him suitable for service in the innermost imperial spaces. The Greeks call them cubicularioi, the men of the cubiculum or bedchamber, and their origins stretch back to ancient Persian courts. In Constantinople, they have become something uniquely Byzantine, neither fully men nor women in the traditional sense, but a third category existing solely for imperial service. Michael's position grants him unprecedented access and authority. During these night hours, he ranks above generals and ministers, even above family members. Should I require anything, water, a physician, a scribe to record a midnight inspiration, it is Michael who will provide it or summon the appropriate person. His proximity to my sleeping form gives him power that even the highest court officials might envy. The chronicles record numerous instances where the prefect of the sacred bedchamber became, in effect, the second most powerful person in the empire through control of access to the imperial ear. What must it be like to live such a life, born to common parents in Cappadocia, for most palace eunuchs come from the empire's eastern provinces? Michael was selected in childhood for his intelligence and pleasing appearance. The operation that transformed him was performed before his 10th year, allowing him to retain the high, clear voice valued in court ceremonies. From that moment, his entire existence became oriented toward imperial service, his education focused exclusively on the intricate protocols of palace life. Eunuchs move through my chamber with the silent efficiency of men who have made invisibility into an art form. They are trained to perform their duties without disturbing imperial rest, walking with a specific gait that minimizes the sound of footfalls, manipulating objects with techniques that eliminate noise. Even their breathing is regulated, taught, from their first days in the palace, to be shallow and inaudible. A curious aspect of eunuch service that few outside the palace understand. These men develop specialized senses that ordinary attendants lack. They can interpret imperial needs from the slightest change in breathing pattern or the most minimal shift in sleeping position. Michael can distinguish between a movement that indicates I require something and one that is merely a natural adjustment during sleep. This almost supernatural awareness comes from decades of nighttime service, observing the subtle language of the sleeping imperial body. The keeper of the imperial water stands motionless in the corner, holding a crystal carafe and silver cup. Should I wake thirsty during the night, he must provide refreshment within moments, the water already poured to precisely the right level. The water itself comes from the sacred spring beneath the palace, the same source used in earlier rituals. It is replaced hourly to ensure perfect freshness, each new carafe blessed by a priest before entering the imperial bedchamber. Near the door stands the night scribe, reed pen and parchment ready in his hands. His role dates back to Justinian, who reportedly woke frequently with insights about legal reforms that required immediate documentation. Since then, every emperor has maintained a scribe during sleeping hours, prepared to record any midnight pronouncement. Some of Byzantium's most significant laws and military strategies originated in such nocturnal inspirations. The night scribe is chosen for his ability to write in near darkness, his specialized training allowing him to produce legible text by the merest flicker of a single oil lamp. The word eunuch comes from the Greek for bed guardian, a fitting description of their primary function in imperial service. Yet their influence extends far beyond the bedchamber. History shows that these men, denied the traditional outlets of family and military achievement, often channeled their considerable talents into administration, diplomacy, and intellectual pursuits. The great Narses, who completed Belisarius's reconquest of Italy under Justinian, was a eunuch who became one of Byzantium's most effective generals, despite his advanced age and physical condition. The protocols governing nighttime attendance are extraordinarily precise. The servants are positioned according to rank and function, arrayed in concentric circles around the imperial bed, with carefully calculated distances between each one. Their positions correspond to the cosmic order, the prefect of the sacred. Bedchamber stands to the east of the bed, the night chamberlain to the west, the keeper of imperial dreams to the north, and the master of the nighttime wardrobe to the south. This arrangement is not arbitrary, but reflects the Byzantine understanding of how cosmic energies flow through the physical world. I have sometimes wondered what these men think as they maintain their silent vigil through the night hours. Do they see me as a living embodiment of imperial majesty, or as a merely human figure wrapped in the trappings of power? Do they envy my position or pity the burdens it carries? Their faces reveal nothing. They are trained from childhood to maintain a perfect mask of impassive dignity, particularly during the vulnerable hours of imperial sleep. The relationship between emperor and eunuch is complex, filled with paradoxes. I hold absolute power over their lives, yet I am vulnerable in their presence. They can never replace me, yet their institutional memory often outlasts individual rulers. Some have served multiple emperors, their loyalty ostensibly to the office, rather than the man. The prefect of the imperial wardrobe has served 3 rulers before me, including my father. His knowledge of precedent and protocol sometimes exceeds that of the highest ministers. One particularly sensitive role in the nighttime hierarchy is the taster of midnight remedies. Should I require any medicine during the night, this eunuch must first consume a portion himself before administering it to me. The position is an ancient one, established after Emperor Claudius II was allegedly poisoned through a sleeping draught. The current holder of the office, Theodore, comes from a family that has provided this service for 9 generations, a lineage of men who gamble their lives on the emperor's safety each time they perform their duty. Despite their physical alteration, or perhaps because of it, the eunuchs maintain their own strict hierarchy and complex social structure within the palace. They have their own dining hall, their own quarters, even their own version of the imperial ceremonies scaled to their station. They form a society within a society, a parallel civilization existing solely to maintain the elaborate machinery of imperial existence through every hour of day and night. Their world revolves entirely around the sacred person of the emperor, yet remains forever separate from the fuller life I know. As sleep begins to claim more of my consciousness, I am vaguely aware of the silent dance taking place around me. The eunuch adjusting my coverlet with movements so practiced they disturb not even the air. The servant trimming the lamp wick to maintain the precise level of illumination considered appropriate for imperial slumber. The night guard being relieved at his post with the exchange so quiet, it might be mistaken for a mere shift in shadows. These men, neither fully of the world nor completely removed from it, keep their eternal vigil, preserving not just my physical safety but the continuity of imperial tradition that flows through them from one generation of rulers to the next. In their silent service lies perhaps the most profound expression of what Byzantium truly is. A civilization where everything, even the emperor's sleep, unfolds according to an order established by God and maintained through the perfect discipline of those who serve. The winter nights in Constantinople have a particular quality, a penetrating cold that seeps through the thickest walls, especially when the north wind sweeps down from the Thracian plains across the Bosporus. Even the imperial chambers are not immune to winter's bite. The city that stands between Europe and Asia experiences all the harshness of both continents' winters, with bitter winds from the Russian steppes finding their way to our promontory between 2 seas. The preparations for an emperor's winter sleep begin long before nightfall. Throughout the day, servants tend the hippocaust beneath my chamber floor, that remarkable Roman invention of hollow spaces through which hot air circulates. While many such systems throughout the empire have fallen into disrepair, those serving the imperial apartments are maintained with scrupulous care. The chief engineer personally inspects the furnaces each morning, ensuring that the proper balance of heat is maintained, warm enough for comfort, yet not so hot as to create unhealthful vapors. Around mid-afternoon, thermal stones, specially selected for their ability to retain heat, are placed in the furnaces beneath the palace. By evening they glow a dull red before being removed with iron tongs and placed in bronze containers beneath my bed. Throughout the night, servants will silently replace cooling stones with freshly heated ones, maintaining a constant warmth that radiates upward through specially designed openings in the bed frame. The timing of these replacements is carefully calculated to coincide with the natural fluctuations of body temperature during sleep. The imperial winter bed differs significantly from its summer counterpart. The frame remains the same, crafted of Lebanese cedar and inlaid with gold and ivory, but everything else transforms to meet the season's demands. The summer's silk gives way to fine wool from imperial flocks, raised specifically in the highlands of Anatolia. These sheep, descended from stock imported during Justinian's reign, produce a wool of extraordinary softness that retains warmth without the coarseness common to most winter fabrics. Most curious among the winter bedding is what court officials call the emperor's winter mantle, a covering of imperial purple lined with the fur of white foxes from the northern reaches of the empire. The combination of royal purple and snow-white fur creates a striking visual contrast while providing remarkable insulation. Tradition holds that this particular design dates to Emperor Theodosius II, who suffered particularly from the cold and commissioned the first such covering after a severe illness during winter. An addition to my winter sleeping attire that might surprise those who imagine imperial luxury in simpler terms. Socks knitted of the finest Iberian wool, dyed not purple, but a deep midnight blue. Byzantine emperors learned long ago that extremities must be protected from cold for the body to truly rest. A courtier recently returned from the barbaric northern lands reports that their kings use fur-lined boots for sleeping, but such heavy footwear seems unnecessarily cumbersome. Our knitted socks, produced by a specialized guild whose members serve only the imperial household, provide warmth without weight. The winter night rituals include elements absent during warmer months. Before I retire, the keeper of imperial aromatics burns a special mixture of frankincense, cedar resin, and dried rosemary on a silver brazier. This practice serves multiple purposes. The pleasant fragrance masks the smell of smoke from the hippocaust. The aromatic woods are believed to purify night air of winter miasmas, and the rising smoke symbolizes prayers ascending to heaven through the dark winter night. One of the more unusual winter comforts provided in the imperial bedchamber is the presence of a small golden cage containing a specially bred nightingale. These remarkable birds, raised in the imperial aviaries, sing softly throughout the night during winter months. Their gentle song provides not just pleasure, but what imperial physicians call oral warming, the psychological sense of warmth that comes from associating their melody with spring. The practice began under Constantine VII Porphyrogenitus, a ruler with scholarly interest in the relationship between natural sounds and human well-being. The midnight oil used in winter lamps differs from that of summer. While summer lamps burn olive oil from imperial estates in Greece, winter illumination comes from specially refined oil containing essences of cinnamon and clove. These warming spices, imported at great expense from the distant East, release subtle aromas that court physicians believe help maintain the proper balance of bodily humors during cold months. The spiced oil also burns with a light that appears warmer, more golden than the purer flame of summer lamps. Few outside the imperial household know of the winter watchers, a specialized subset of the night servants who monitor the temperature of the imperial bedchamber throughout the night. Using instruments developed by Byzantine natural philosophers, they ensure that the temperature remains within narrow parameters considered optimal for imperial sleep. Too cold, and the emperor might wake. Too warm, and the humors become imbalanced, leading to troubling dreams or morning lethargy. Their silent movements, checking heating elements and adjusting ventilation, form another layer of the complex choreography surrounding imperial sleep. The walls themselves participate in winter comfort. During the autumn preparation of the imperial apartments, special tapestries are hung, massive works depicting scenes from Byzantine military triumphs, woven with threads of gold and silver that seem to capture and reflect the lamplight. Beyond their decorative and propagandistic functions, these magnificent textiles serve as additional insulation against drafts. Some, created during the reign of Basil Thun, incorporate prayers for imperial protection woven directly into their borders, protection that is both physical and spiritual. On particularly cold nights, an additional figure joins the usual complement of night servants. The keeper of imperial dreams remains awake in the antechamber, specially trained to detect sounds of distress that might indicate a nightmare brought on by winter's chill. Winter dreams were believed to differ from those of warmer seasons, influenced by the contraction of bodily humors in response to cold. The Byzantine understanding of sleep recognizes these seasonal variations, adapting imperial sleep protocols accordingly. A curious winter tradition dating to Justinian's time. A small silver vessel of warmed wine mixed with honey and certain herbs stands ready on a table near the bed. Should the emperor wake during the night, this cordial, called the midnight comfort, provides both warmth and sustenance. The proportion of wine to honey varies according to medical prescriptions specific to the emperor's constitution, prepared fresh each evening by the imperial physician and tasted, as all imperial consumables are, before being brought to the bedchamber. Find the winter night brings its own variety of imperial solitude. The silence has a different quality, deeper, more profound than summer's relative quiet. The city sleeps more heavily in winter, with fewer nocturnal activities. Even the Bosporus seems quieter, with reduced shipping traffic and the waters themselves sometimes still enough to freeze in protected coves. This winter silence allows for a quality of thought different from other seasons. More introspective, more fundamental to the greater questions of existence and governance. As I drift deeper towards sleep, cushioned by layers of imperial wool, and warmed by the ingenious systems developed across centuries of Byzantine refinement, I reflect that even in this most fundamental human experience, seeking warmth in winter darkness, an emperor remains distinct. The same cold that might threaten the life of a poor man in Constantinople's outer districts becomes, in the imperial bedchamber, merely another occasion for demonstrating Byzantine ingenuity and the elaborate systems that maintain imperial continuity through every season, every year, every generation. Not all nights bring easy sleep, even to emperors. There are evenings when the weight of governance presses too heavily, when diplomatic concerns spiral through my mind, or when the body itself rebels against rest. For these occasions, Byzantine, imperial tradition has developed an elaborate pharmacopoeia of sleep-inducing remedies, concoctions guarded as closely as state secrets and prepared with the same precision as diplomatic treaties. The imperial apothecary approaches my bedside with measured steps. Tonight it is Stephanos, whose family has held this position for 4 generations. He carries a small chest of cedar wood inlaid with mother of pearl and secured with a silver lock. The key hangs around his neck, a symbol of both his authority and responsibility. Within this chest lie remedies developed over centuries, their formulations preserved in encoded texts accessible only to those who hold his office. "Your Serenity appears troubled tonight," he observes quietly. His trained eye can detect the subtle signs of imperial restlessness, a slight tension around the eyes, a particular way of resting the hands. "Shall I prepare something to ease your passage into sleep?" I nod, and he opens the chest. The interior is divided into dozens of tiny compartments, each containing ingredients labeled in an arcane script known only to imperial apothecaries. This encryption is no mere affectation, but a security measure established after Emperor Leo V was allegedly poisoned by a corrupted sleeping draught. Byzantine sleep medicines represent a unique synthesis of classical Greek medical knowledge, Eastern innovations, and our own imperial refinements. While Hippocrates and Galen provide the theoretical foundation, centuries of practical experience within the imperial bedchamber have created preparations unavailable anywhere else in the world. From the chest, Stephanos selects several ingredients, with deliberate care. I recognize some: dried valerian root, crushed poppy seeds, powdered amber, while others remain mysterious, even to me. The preparation begins with ritual precision. A small silver mortar and pestle emerge from the chest, both engraved with medical symbols dating back to Asclepius. Stephanos combines the components in specific proportions, grinding them while murmuring prayers attributed to Saint Pantaleimon, patron of physicians. The Byzantine approach to sleep medicines differs significantly from both Western and Eastern traditions. While Western medicine often relies on single powerful herbs, and Eastern practices emphasize balancing opposing forces, our Byzantine preparations typically combine multiple ingredients in precise hierarchies. The imperial pharmacopoeia recognizes three categories of sleep components: those that calm the mind, those that relax the body, and those that harmonize the soul. Tonight I've selected the dormition compound, Stephanos explains as he works. Your breathing suggests tension in the chest, while your eyes indicate active thoughts that resist quieting. This particular preparation, named for the dormition of the Theotokos, was reportedly developed during the reign of Empress Irene. Its exact formula remains an imperial secret, but court physicians claim it produces sleep that mimics the peaceful transition between life and afterlife experienced by the Virgin Mary, who according to Orthodox tradition did not die but fell into a blessed sleep before her assumption into heaven. Once the dry ingredients are thoroughly combined, Stephanos adds precisely 3 drops of a golden liquid from a tiny vial sealed with wax bearing the imperial eagle. This substance, referred to in court documents simply as the honey of tranquil nights, is among the most closely guarded of imperial medicines. Rumors suggest it contains essence of exotic flowers that bloom only under moonlight in remote Cappadocian valleys, collected by monks sworn to silence. A curious aspect of imperial sleep medicine unknown to outsiders. Each Byzantine emperor works with the chief apothecary early in his reign to develop a personalized sleep preparation, a unique formula attuned to his specific constitution. Mine contains an unusual addition of cedar resin from Lebanon, which court physicians determined harmonizes particularly well with my bodily humors. This personalization reflects the Byzantine understanding that even universal concerns like sleep require individualized approaches for those who bear the weight of empire. The prepared remedy is mixed with warm, honeyed water in a shallow cup of translucent alabaster. Certain medicines are believed to react negatively with metals, while others are thought to be enhanced by specific materials. The alabaster cup used for sleep preparations was a gift from the Aksumite king to Justinian, and has been used by Byzantine emperors ever since, another thread of continuity woven through the tapestry of imperial nights. Before I consume the preparation, Stephanos performs the required safety ritual. Using a silver spoon, he takes a small portion himself, then waits for precisely 100 heartbeats. This practice, instituted after various historical poisoning attempts, provides some assurance against treachery. Only after this precautionary measure does he present the cup to me with a formal bow. The taste is complex. Bitter herbs balanced with honey sweetness, a hint of exotic spice, and an underlying earthiness that speaks of the natural world from which these remedies come. I drink it slowly, as instructed. Imperial physicians maintain that the mindful consumption of sleep remedies enhances their effectiveness. Unlike common sleeping draughts that overwhelm the body with potent herbs, imperial preparations work by guiding the body's natural processes toward harmonious rest. Breathe deeply after each sip, Stephanos instructs, allowing the vapors to reach the chambers of the mind. This guidance reflects the Byzantine understanding of human physiology, which views sleep as a process involving not just the physical form, but the pneuma, the breath or spirit that animates the body. By controlling breath while consuming the remedy, the emperor supposedly directs the medicinal properties to where they are most needed. Beyond these prepared medicines, the imperial apothecary maintains various physical aids for troublesome nights. From a drawer in the chest, Stephanos removes a small silk pouch filled with dried herbs and places it near my pillow. The fragrance is subtle but distinctive: lavender, chamomile, and something less identifiable. These aromatics work while the primary medicine takes effect, creating layers of influence on the imperial senses. Another device occasionally employed for difficult nights is a small crystal sphere filled with a phosphorescent liquid derived from certain Mediterranean mollusks. This curious object, when placed beside the bed, emits a faint, pulsing blue-green light that supposedly entrains the imperial heartbeat to a restful rhythm. The technology dates back to the reign of Leo the mathematician, that brilliant 9th century emperor, whose interest in natural philosophy produced several such innovations. For particularly resistant insomnia, Byzantine imperial medicine sometimes employs auditory treatments. Stephanos places a small silver bell beside my pillow, instructing me to ring it 3 times if sleep continues to elude me after the primary remedy takes effect. This would summon the imperial chanter, a monk with a voice of exceptional depth, who recites specific passages from the Psalms in tones scientifically determined to induce delta brain patterns associated with deep sleep. As the medicine begins to take effect, I feel a gradual heaviness in my limbs, a pleasant distancing from the concerns that earlier denied rest. The imperial apothecaries have refined their art to avoid the morning dullness common to cruder sleeping potions. These sophisticated preparations supposedly guide the body through natural sleep cycles, rather than forcing unconsciousness, allowing the emperor to wake clear-headed from morning duties. Stephanos repacks his chest with methodical precision, each component returning to its designated compartment. He will remain in the antechamber throughout the night, available should the initial remedy prove insufficient or should I experience unusual dreams requiring documentation. The relationship between imperial sleep and imperial medicine is intimate and essential, another invisible pillar supporting the visible structures of Byzantine governance. As consciousness begins to fade, I reflect that even in this most universal of human needs, the medicine that grants relief from wakefulness, an emperor remains set apart. The same herbs that might be brewed as simple teas for common citizens become, in the imperial bedchamber, elements in an elaborate alchemical operation where science, faith, and statecraft blend into a single unified practice. One more expression of the Byzantine genius for synthesis. The deepest hour of night has arrived. The palace grows quieter still as Constantinople sleeps beneath a canopy of stars. This final threshold before complete surrender to slumber belongs to the soul's most intimate conversations. Now comes the most private ritual of imperial nights. The last prayers before sleep claims even an emperor's consciousness. I turn my gaze toward the small shrine built into the eastern wall of my chamber. Unlike the grand ceremonies of the Hagia Sophia, or the formal devotions led by the patriarch, these midnight prayers emerge from a place of profound intimacy. Here, in the space between wakefulness and dreams, the purple fades away, and I approach God not as Emperor of the Romans, but simply as a soul seeking divine protection through the vulnerable hours of night. The shrine holds an icon of Christ, Pantocrator, painted by the master Theophanes during my grandfather's reign. The lamplight catches the gold leaf surrounding his face, making the sacred image seem to hover between materiality and pure light. Christ's eyes follow me regardless of where I lie. One eye stern in judgment, the other soft with mercy. This duality perfectly captures the Byzantine understanding of divinity. God is both the righteous judge and the loving father, both the thundering voice from Sinai and the still whisper in the garden. I begin with the Trisagion prayers, the ancient words forming on my lips without conscious thought. Holy God, holy mighty, holy immortal, have mercy on us. 3 times, I repeat this, marking each repetition with the sign of the cross. Byzantine tradition holds that these words were revealed by angels during the reign of Theodosius II, when Constantinople was threatened by earthquakes. A child, lifted miraculously into the heavens, heard the angelic choirs singing this hymn and brought it back to earth. Whether legend or history, these words have guarded imperial sleep for centuries. Next comes the prayer of the hours, modified for the midnight watch. Thou, who at all times and at every hour in heaven and on earth art worshipped and glorified, O Christ our God. The familiar cadence of these words creates a rhythm that slows my breathing and heart rate, preparing body and soul for sleep's approach. There is profound comfort in knowing that these same words have been whispered by imperial lips since Constantinople became the center of Christian empire. For emperors alone, there exists a special prayer composed by Constantine VII Porphyrogenitus, that most scholarly of Byzantine rulers. This Emperor's Night Surrender acknowledges the unique burden of imperial sleep. That even in unconsciousness, an emperor carries responsibilities unlike any other mortal. Lord of the wakeful angels, receive now the empire into thy keeping, as my eyes close in sleep. Guard what thou hast entrusted to me, the people, the city, the faith. Let thy sovereignty continue where mine must surrender to human weakness. Guide my dreams toward wisdom, if it be thy will to speak in such shadows, and grant that I may wake to serve thee again with renewed strength when morning illuminates thy creation. The words connect me to every legitimate emperor who came before, each one surrendering the same awesome responsibility to divine care before submitting to sleep's necessity. Did Justinian feel this same momentary liberation as power temporarily transferred from imperial to divine hands? Did Heraclius experience this nightly reminder of his own mortality and dependence on higher authority? In these private prayers, the continuity of imperial experience across centuries becomes most tangible. A peculiar aspect of imperial night prayers that few outsiders know. Since the reign of Basil I, Byzantine emperors maintain a special prayer, rope beside their pillow. Not the elaborate jeweled version used during public devotions, but one of simple black wool with knots of imperial purple. This komboskini, as we call it, contains precisely 33 knots representing Christ's years on earth. In moments of midnight wakefulness, imperial fingers can trace these knots while reciting the Jesus prayer. Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me, a sinner. The tactile connection to prayer provides comfort when sleep proves elusive. After the formal prayers, there comes a moment of spontaneous supplication, wordless sometimes, or expressed in personal terms that would never be heard in court ceremonies. This is perhaps the only time when an emperor can speak to God without the weight of protocol and tradition shaping every syllable. In these unguarded moments, I have sometimes found myself praying not for victory in war or success in diplomacy, but for simpler blessings, clarity of mind, steadiness of purpose, the wisdom to distinguish trustworthy counsel from flattery. The final ritual gesture before sleep involves the small golden cross kept beneath my pillow. Legend claims it contains a fragment of the true cross discovered by Saint Helena, Constantine's mother. When Empress Theodora fled Constantinople during the iconoclast persecutions, she reportedly carried this cross with her, ensuring its preservation when countless other sacred items were destroyed. Now it passes from emperor to emperor, a physical link to our Christian imperial origins. I kiss it once and return it to its place of honor, where it will remain through the night as a shield against both physical and spiritual dangers. As I complete these devotions, a curious thought often surfaces in the liminal space between prayer and sleep. Do my imperial prayers reach God differently than those of the baker, the soldier, or the farmer? Orthodox theology teaches that all souls stand equally before divine judgment. Yet Byzantine imperial ideology posits the emperor as God's special representative on earth. This paradox, the emperor as both ordinary supplicant and divinely appointed ruler, captures the essential tension at the heart of Byzantine civilization itself. The last lamp burns lower now, its flame creating shifting patterns across the icon of Christ. My eyelids grow heavy as the combined effects of physical fatigue, medical preparations, and spiritual peace guide me toward sleep's embrace. The final conscious sensation is often the smooth texture of the prayer rope against my fingers. The last conscious thought, a fragment of psalm or gospel that follows me down into dreams. He who keeps you will not slumber. In this moment, as consciousness fades, I am acutely aware of the dual nature of imperial existence. Tomorrow I will again bear the insignia of absolute authority, the crown, the labarum, the purple boots. But tonight, in the vulnerability of sleep and the humility of prayer, I am reminded that even emperors are, in the end, merely mortal souls navigating the mysterious passage through this life toward eternity. Perhaps this nightly reminder of our shared humanity is what allows us to bear the isolating weight of the purple when morning comes. The stars wheel slowly in their eternal dance, silent witnesses to the sleep of emperors and peasants, generals and monks, their celestial paths as unchanging as the flow of time that carries each of us in its inevitable current. We feel that river now, do we not? How it gently pulls us from the shores of consciousness, taking us to deeper, darker, more serene waters. The candles of history we have lit together tonight begin to dim, their golden flames transforming into soft embers that paint the walls of our thoughts with shades of imperial purple. The echoes of Byzantine rituals remain, whispering through the centuries like waves gently breaking against the ancient walls of Constantinople. The sea of memory is vast and bottomless. We have dipped only briefly into its depths tonight, touching fragments of long-forgotten dreams, moments of imperial vulnerability preserved like amber in the eternal flow of time. Who are we to capture such moments, if not temporary travelers, in this great tapestry of history? The curtains of sleep now close around us, heavier than imperial silk, softer than night prayers. Let them envelop you as the last sounds of the Byzantine court fade into the distance. The guards remain at their eternal posts. The eunuchs continue their silent vigil. The emperor dreams his immortal dreams, as we too surrender to the welcoming darkness. Allow the weight of your own eyes to yield to the gentle gravity of night, as the stars continue their silent path across a sky that has already witnessed the rise and fall of empires. The gates of the past close softly behind us, but they will be there again when we wish to revisit them. On another night, in another dream. Good night, time traveler. May your rest be as light as the footprints we leave in the sands of history. You've just listened to Memories from a Bomb Shelter, a sleep story from the series History for Sleep. This episode was written to be felt, not just heard. A story woven from silence, light, and shared breath. If this story brought you calm, comfort, or curiosity, you're warmly invited to return. New journeys into quiet history arrive each week, to dream again, to rest, to remember. Leave a gentle word in the comments. Let us know where you're listening from. You are not alone here. Until next time, sleep softly, and may the past keep you safe tonight.